In this tutorial we are working on the building and construction of an armature to connect a copper bale to the top of our polymer clay dragon eye pendant. And this will make sure that it won't break under the weight of the clay and is a must for very large statement pieces. I'll also show you how to get it to a stunning finish. So I have this special copper pipe cutting tool here which we're going to use, and you can just simply screw it one way to get a larger gap and then the other way to tighten it. You can mark out your copper piping with a pen and then simply just insert it into the little niche here. And you can line up the mark with the little metal wheel, which is going to be the part of the device that is going to cut it. So to get it into place, just twist and tighten the little handle until it grabs, and we don't want to tighten it too much. And it's really easy to use if you've got a lot of chronic pain in your hands. I do, and I find it very simple to use. All you need to do is to hold the pipe while you're turning it around, and then as you feel the pressure releases and it gets really loose, you just simply slightly tighten that little handle again as you go. You can see that it started to already cut into the pipe here. So we just keep continuing on like this and adjusting and tightening the little handle until the pipe falls away from the side of the device. So just unscrew the handle to get your piece of copper piping out. And you'll see in this close-up that we've got a couple of little burrs and bits and pieces in there that we'll need to file out. And the reason why we're doing this is that they can cut into whatever material you put inside, say for instance leather, and they could also actually cut your fingers, so we don't want that. And I'm using a round file to get the inside and then finishing off with a flat file to get more on the outside, and you may need to do this for a bit longer than what I did. So here we have the polymer clay pendant that we're going to pop the copper bale on top of, and you'll see that I have marked and cut out my own piece of piping to the exact measurements that I wanted for this particular dragon eye. And you'll be able to see that there are a couple of little marks on either end, about 1 centimetre in from each edge, which is just something that's unavoidable, unfortunately, from the way that the copper cutting device tool works. And so what I'm going to do is just bring the clay right up to that edge to kind of disguise that little tool mark a bit. And also, yes, as I mentioned earlier, really important, you can see a little bit more of the burrs here to really clean up that part of your pendant, of your piping. There's some burrs there. You can see they look quite sharp and nasty, so we really want to get those off, and I recommend doing that using a particulate mask outside. So just looking at fitting this copper part on, we need to make sure that it's going to match up. So we'll just trim away some of the excess clay here. So the wire that I will be using is a 0.7mm thickness wire, and it's extremely thin and very bendy, flexy and easy to use. So it's very good for your hands if you get sore hands. So I've cut out this little piece of the redder type of clay, the same clay that we used for the base. And before I actually affix that, I'm going to put the wire on the copper tubing. So let's have a look at that. So we've got this wire here. And just to make it a little bit stronger, I'm just going to double it over. And we want to double it over. When I say that, I mean I've actually folded it in half, so we've got a double thickness. And I'll start in the middle of the piece of wire, making sure that it doesn't kind of overlap or bend like that. We want to keep the wire separate as we wrap it around as tightly as we can. Just check that it hasn't wrapped over behind. No, it hasn't. That's good. So we're going to start in the middle and work our way out to the edges. And we don't want to go over this section here because the clay is going to wrap over and cover the wire to there, and we want to keep a little bit of that nice copper colour there. And then this leftover part of the wire will go down behind the actual pendant and act as a little bit of an armature, just to kind of, and a bit of support just to keep the pendant on the copper tubing. So you can see there that's exactly lined up with that mark where we're going with the clay, and we'll do the same to the other side. Just wrapping as tightly as you can. We want to use a really thin wire because we don't want this to look too chunky when we put the clay over the top. So there we go, gone up to there. So you can just take your wire cutters see how we're going to put the wire onto it. So I probably want to kind of angle it out that way a little bit, and maybe bring it around in a little bit of a circle to kind of match the shape. So we need to trim a little bit of excess off here. In some pendants you can kind of squish the wire together here and then wrap it around, but I don't think I'm going to actually do that with this one. I think I'm just going to leave it as is. So what we want to do is get this to the same thickness as this section here, which is then going to cover the wire. So we'll just chop off a little bit from the side. We'll see how we go with thickness there. That's pretty perfect. Just straighten this edge a bit. And so what we're going to do is to join this over the top. Now, so that looks pretty perfect. That's very centered. I think it looks very centered. So what we're going to do now is to add some Sculpey Bake and Bond. So we want to put a really good amount on there. We want to get a really strong bond, and we'll do it to both sides. So I'm just going to match that up there. Roll it around. So we're looking pretty good so far. If we flip over to the back, you can see what's going on here. So I'm going to need some more Bacon Bond. So I can just see at the moment it's looking a little bit too thick for my liking. And what I'm going to do with that is just clean it up a little bit and then we'll see where we land. So we're going to have to start by blending this together. We can come back and fix this up later. Make sure it's nice and clean. So we may want to have, you may like to have a little indentation here, which kind of hints more along the line of where that copper tubing has been placed, and that's completely up to you. I'm just going to try it out and see if I like it. I do. And then we can just put little edges of that, of the flames up onto there a little bit later. You can always add other little details later on. So I'm quite liking that look actually. And we can go along and take the knife just to clean up that edge. This a little bit, looks like we need to chop a little bit more off this side because there's quite a bit more copper showing on this edge. So I've just got a sheet of clay here just to do a little bit of a demo. This is the texture sponge here I'm talking about. You can just use your fingers to press it in, or you can use an acrylic roller, and as you can see you get a really, really nice texture. And so that's going to look great with antiquing and getting all of the little dark or lighter bits of paint into the cracks. So that's a great little technique that you can use on this area here. And what I'm going to do is, I would usually put that kind of texture there, however I think I want to kind of follow and continue with these flames up here a little bit. I'm thinking I actually might keep it plain so it doesn't kind of detract from the rest of the piece. I'm just going so simple with this one, which is not my usual style. However, now here's a little look of how it looks at the back at the moment, and you can see that we've blended a little bit of that down there. We pushed all of the Bacon Bond bond, made a nice firm bond around here. Just use the shaper tool to kind of give a 90-degree, well, not exactly, but it doesn't have to be exact, bit of a 90-degree angle here on the edges over there. So, and then we blended it out here. So the next thing to do is to put another layer of clay just to cover this wire as well. So before I do that, I might fix up this area here with the flames and just continue those on. Because it is such a clear area here though that I'm thinking of leaving just plain. This is kind of maybe one of the circumstances where I'd say, hey, maybe you might want to sand it or smooth it with some rubbing alcohol just to get rid of any fingerprints. And same with this area here. Usually I don't bother with that kind of thing. However, if it's a larger area, then maybe I'll consider it, which I will at this stage for that particular piece of the work. So there we have it. So we've managed to continue the flames up to this area here. So now we need to think about what we're going to do at the back. So I'm going to roll out a nice sheet of the copper to go on the back. We're just going to use that straight over the back like that. Okay, so I've rolled out a piece in the pasta machine that's going to fit over just this end section here and cover all the little bits and pieces. Before I put that on, I'm just going to texture it a little bit with that texture sponge that we saw earlier. So I'm just going to press down. I'm going to grab some of the Bacon Bond. Okay, so we're flipping it over, just like that, and covering the entire back. And we'll flip it back this way, to hold on to the eyeball section, and we're just going to push it onto the back. So you can see there's a little bit of a lump there, but that's nothing to worry about. And what we can then do is cut around all the little bits of flames. So now that we've trimmed off all of the excess, you can see how it looks at the back. And I'm going to put a little stamp in here a little bit later, and we can do a couple of little details here just to join that together. You'll see there's quite a lot of tidying up to do around the edges, just blending all of those in, but we know they're not going anywhere because we put a lot of the Bake & Bond there. But I couldn't in good conscience leave such thin pieces sticking out because I don't think the pendant would survive. It would just be way too fragile. So it's great that it's a lot thicker. It probably would have gone maybe 1 mil less in thickness, but I'm just going to leave it how it is, and it's going to be nice and strong anyway. So it has put a little bit more weight to the pendant, however I feel that it really needs that just to keep it really nice and strong. So I'm just going to go ahead and clean up some of the edges now, just making sure you hold on to the glass eyeball section as you go around, and I would do that with a shaper tool like this one, and just go around like that. Make sure everything's pressed together well, and just pinching the edges. You don't want to do this step, you don't have to. It can be just enough just to pinch it together with your fingers like this. Make sure that it's well bonded. Otherwise you can get the shaper tool and just completely blend all of this together like this. But as I said, it's probably a lot easier if you actually pre-baked the first section, as I mentioned before, in the oven first before putting the backing on, because then you can apply a lot of pressure and it's a lot easier to blend it on, but that's completely up to you. So you can see that everything's been cleaned up a little bit around the edges. Don't worry a little bit if there's a little bit of glue, a little bit of the Bake & Bond sticking out, that's nothing to worry about. So if we turn it over to the back, we're going to focus a little bit on that now. Oh, I did add an extra little curly bit of flame here, just because everything seemed to be going up in this direction and I wanted to add a little bit of variation there. So that happened, magically just happened. Anyway, so on the back we've got this lovely texture, and so a way that we can kind of finish off the back piece is to grab a very thin piece of clay, give it a little bit of a texture. So we're wanting to kind of disguise a little bit this round indentation where the wire is. So what we can do is we can get a Sculpey circle cutter, and it's about that size. We don't really want to go any bigger than that. Chop out a little circle of that. And then we don't need any Bake & Bond or anything, but you can see that that's really quite disguised where the wire is underneath here. And so the next step would be to stamp something in there, or you can simply use some kind of indentation tool such as a Sculpey ball tool like this one, or you could use a larger one like this size. I have my own little stamps that I use, so I have a larger one and I have a smaller one here. So I think I actually might like to go for the larger one on this circle, so I probably should do that before I don't want to ruin everything, because as I've mentioned, this hasn't been baked yet. I'm just working with all fresh clay at the moment, and give it a little bit of a stamp with your initials or your logo, whatever you would like. So we can then pop that down there, and then just use an indentation tool of some sort, and that's just going to give it a really good bond to the clay underneath, and that's all you need, and it looks really cool too. So that's how I would finish off that section, just kind of disguising the wire that's underneath a little bit. The other section that needs a little bit of work is this section here. As you can see, there's quite a big groove there. So I'm just going to use a few balls. Actually, I think I like that as a kind of like a little highlight. Otherwise, it might be a little bit too much pink. But can you ever have too much pink? Seriously. What are you thinking, Mel? And let's just make a couple of little balls. So I might just do that. So what I've done is I'm folding over my sponge. I'm going to put a little bit of paper towel so I don't have texture transferring onto it, and I'm just going to pop it down like that out of the way while we're making lots of little ball scales. Squishing them down a bit. And yeah, I think I like how that's come out. I think I might actually indent those balls. I don't want to continue the scales all the way up there, so it might just be nice to keep in a little bit of the continuity with the balls that are going around the circle here. In fact, you could actually make a lot of the gold balls and just do that all the way around there if you'd like. And that would look amazing. And so we're pretty much finished. I can't believe it. There we go. If there's any little bits and pieces that need texture, if they've lost their texture from handling or whatever else has happened, you can just go in and pop that in again now. So as I said, I'm going to keep this part smooth, so I'm happy with the back, how it is there. Let's just have a nice look at that there. Okay, let's check the front. Any little bits and pieces that don't look like they belong. A bit better, and then you might go through and find any other little bits, and you could go on with this, tidying this up for a very long time. So I try not to get too involved in being too fussy and panicky pants about the whole thing. However, I would say that that little one is finished. So I'm going to be adding some Gilda's Paste wax to this piece here. It's a really flexible kind of paste wax that you can use on, of course, polymer clay, wood, engravings, lots of things. And if you get it on anything and you'd like to take it off, all you need to use is a paint thinner or some turpentine and it will come off. And you usually apply it with a sponge. I'm going to use my fingers today. So it's a screw lid. You can see it's called German silver, but it has a little bit of a goldish sheen to it. It is such a lovely finish, and it dries in about 10 minutes to the touch, but takes about 12 hours to cure completely. And you can give it a little bit of a luster by burnishing it with a cloth. And yeah, it's really concentrated, so you only need a teeny tiny little bit. I'm just going to show you how much. I'm just literally just going to put that much on my finger. Start to see that it's bringing out in this area here. It's really kind of bringing out those different colours. I don't have any mineral spirits on this, but I'm just going to see if I can just, yes, I can just remove it really with a little brush here. It's a little bit stinky, so I would recommend doing this in a well ventilated area, or have the window open at the very least. I'm just getting the teeny tiniest little bit on my glove. So you can see that we've lost a little bit of the definition of the different colours of the pink, yellow and gold, but it's kind of tonally kind of tied all of the colours in, so you could probably really, I mean, I like the finish of it. However, you could probably do lots of different kind of weird colours and it would tie it all in. So I think if you're a little bit worried about colour combinations, that this would be a really great kind of medium to tie it together. And I'm just going to see if I can take a little bit off this area here. It's coming off the cotton bud there. Just don't want to have it as strong on this coppery bit. It's actually given a really lovely smooth look, kind of blending it into the copper. I actually really like how that's turned out. That's a happy little accident just there. There are a couple of bits you can see this pink section in here where it hasn't gone all the way up to the edge, so it just looks a little bit clunky is what I'm getting at. So I'm just gonna a little bit of a clunky section here. I'm just gonna kind of tidy that up a little bit. see this bit here looks a little bit weird. So we'll get in there. I'm not going to add any to this section up the top there. I'm going to leave that as a bit of a contrast there. Ooh, I got some on the glass. Let's see how that comes off very easily. But I've just realised I've missed a spot in there, so I might have to get a little applicator to pop it into that section. I've got one of these little mini sponge applicators, and I'll see if I can show you, because I can show you. Let's see what I can do here. These little mini sponge applicators are really, really handy. I got them from a place called Number 2, Two Wards, Paul McLean. Absolutely lovely, very helpful ladies. And it looks like it's really good at kind of getting into those smaller little areas. Anyway, let's turn this around and pop a little on the back. And a great thing to note about this as well as a product is that this little tin will probably last like a lifetime. Like, seriously, just use the teeny tiniest little bit. Like, you can see that, I'll show you, like, I've used hardly anything there. It's a ridiculous value for money, which is great. So it's a really good investment, I think, just generally. That looks really, really awesome. Loving how that's looking. And I wonder if I should just leave it like that to have a nice contrast. It actually looks really, really good like that. I might just pop some on the gold there. And we'll be finished very, very soon. So let's just zoom in and have a little looky at that. Tiny bit there. I'm such a fussy pants. So let's turn it around and check it out. Make sure it's all nice and clean for our viewers. And I'm happy with that. really happy to share all of my Dragon Eye secrets, designs, techniques and tutorials with you. So thank you so much for supporting me, and I'll see you in the next one.